Hi everyone, this is Daria Piano. Welcome back to my channel. First of all, I would like to thank all of you for continuing to support my channel, despite the fact that I am not able to post too many videos and my posts are rather infrequent as of late. I apologize for that and I will try to rectify it as much as I can. However, the schoolwork is so busy at the time, and also I have other musical engagements outside of school that are quite important for me. So I'm trying to juggle a lot of things, and videos are not always manageable. But today's video will focus on simple exercises for absolute beginners. The reason for this video is an inspiration from some of my new students who are adult beginners, and it's somewhat new territory for me because most of my previous students were either adults who are continuing their piano journey or kids who are beginners or kids who are continuing. So beginner adults is an interesting territory for me, and I was able to come up with a few exercises on my own that I recommend my students to do, and I hope they will be helpful for you as well. And just quickly, I will explain why these particular exercises are, in my opinion, important in the beginning of your journey to learn the piano as an adult. It has to do with conceptual understanding of how this instrument is different from other instruments, let's say strings or winds. Piano has a very special feature. It is very visual in its representation of sound in terms of tones and distances between them. And also it is very physical in the way we manipulate those tones with our fingers, and the distances on the piano is always consistent between two nearest keys, which in sound equals to a semitone or a half step. So in other words, if I play a chromatic scale, which means every single key one after the other, including black and white keys, something like this, it will represent the chromatic scale, which consists of half steps. So E to F is a half step, F to F sharp is a half step, and so on. So if you're a little bit familiar with the notes, the names of the notes, so you probably already know that. But the reason it is important is because it's very different from, for example, violin or another string instrument, where your distances, if you need to finger something low in a low register, the distance between the G and A physically will differ from the distance between G and A in a high register, and it will become smaller in the high register. In piano, the distance between the two nearest keys is always consistent. And this is why, for us, muscle memory is of paramount importance from the very beginning. And as adults, we can actually help ourselves and speed up that process. We can accelerate our familiarity, physical familiarity with the keyboard as early as your first day of learning or your first week of learning. And these exercises are targeting that specific area of your physical connection with the piano in developing your muscle memory. I will give a closer camera to show you the exercises in detail. It will be 3 simple exercises with different variations that you can come up with yourself, so you can make it a little bit more interesting so it doesn't become dull repetition over and over again. I apologize if the angle seems a little strange. I just wanted to be most practical so I can display exactly what I need to show you with both of my hands. First exercise is finger exercise. It could be 5-finger, 3-finger, or 1-finger exercise, or any of the above combinations. It has to do with simply finding your distance from one note to the next nearest key. So key, in this case, key and note in my vocabulary when it comes to piano are interchangeable. So we start with C as the first note, and then we'll put 1 finger per key. Usually, unless you have a particularly large or particularly small hand, usually naturally it falls into a position where you have 1 finger per note and you don't have to worry about it too much. So your hand gets used to finding the nearest key with the nearest finger. So let's try that. So simply C, then next D, E, F, G. I just want to point out that in this video, I will not mention anything about how you need to sit, how you need to position your hand, your wrist, your forearm, your fingers, and so on, because I have a separate video dedicated specifically to that, actually even a couple of videos. Feel free to watch those if you need guidance in that respect. This exercise, I suggest we do legato. Legato simply means smoothly connect one note to the next, but don't hold over. So don't do this. That's not legato, is just holding over. Legato is like that. Next, 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 next. The reason legato is good for this exercise is because it targets one of the fundamentals of piano playing, and it has to do with weight transfer. So if I was asked to describe what does piano playing mean, I would say weight transfer. We take the weight all the way from our arm, from our back even, right? We transfer it to the key with just enough tone in your finger, or just enough tension, but not over tension, right? So you just have enough tone to sustain that key, the weight on the key, then you go to the next. As smoothly as possible without having tension building up anywhere, because tension always leads to problems, pain, discomfort, and all that comes with it. So this legato exercise that teaches you that the next note has the next finger, you learn the distances, and you also learn to transfer weight smoothly. The last third thing that this exercise is good for is to also watch out for your wrist movement. That is as simple as down, up. So you go down on the first key, first note down, and towards the last note, you go up with the wrist. Right, down, up, down, up. You can do the same with 3 notes, with fingers that are adjacent to each other. For example, 4, 3, and 2 is a great combination, the most agile. Like that. Another good combination is 3, 2, 1. Thumb is not as agile, but also 3, 4, 5 is possible. Of course, each combination is possible. So how does this exercise help you learn the distances on the keyboard? You just need to remember, very important, that your playing is not limited to where the right hand is located, where the left hand is located. You only play here. No, you can play here. Even your right hand can go here. Your left hand can go here. You can go separate ways as far as possible. You can be here. You can go like this. Right? All of this is your piano territory, and you need to be very relaxed in using it and very comfortable. You don't have to feel tension if you need to move your hand too far. Like you're expanding basically your comfort zone by getting familiar with the distances on the keyboard. So how does this exercise help you? What you simply need to do is you transfer this 5-finger pattern or 3-finger pattern, whichever pattern you choose, to another key. So let's say C, D, E, F, G. Then you go to B. Then to A. And so on. This way you learn not just the distances that fall next to your next finger, next distance, next finger, right? But you also learn, for example, how to move your pinky to the next note. Then I'll show you with the right hand. Or with the pinky. Now pinky goes from here to here. So you're learning that small distance with your hand. You're remembering, and again, so on. So your pinky moves. You can simply do this exercise, of course, too. Absolutely. This is one of the variations. But this involves all 5 fingers, just a little bit more interesting. Right? And you keep going. Another one is where your distance increases. You can do a skip. Instead of G to A, you can move G to B, for example. Now B. And so on. So now your pinky learns how to jump a distance of a third. And when I say a third, it's an interval. It's 1, 2, 3. That's called the third. That's a fourth. That's a fifth, and so on. I will eventually do a specific lesson on intervals, but this is just a brief summary of what it is. Its interval is simply a distance between one note to the next note. Now, this can be done as a variant. 3 fingers, then your 4-finger can go first, and then you can go even octave, for example. Octave is a great distance to learn because it's very useful. Octave is 8 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or in other words, you're finding the nearest note with the same name. So from E to the next E, either up or down, is an octave. So you go E, D, C, remove, and next E, D, C, next. That way your hand remembers, that's the distance of an octave. Okay, very good. There we go, right? Another way to remember the distances will be simply to actually play all of them together. Let's say 3 fingers. 3. And another variant of this exercise is simply 1 key at a time with 1 finger. Any finger or every finger is good. So for example, 3 is the most stable, right in the middle. You're learning, okay, next note. Okay, I'm learning exactly how far, physically, how far is this for me, going from one note to the next. I can learn how far is the third. I'm going thirds. I can learn how far is the fifth, which is 5 steps. 5, next 5th, and then of course any of them are possible. I'm just giving examples. Octave. And watch what I'm doing. One important thing is to not be excessively too high and then jump to the next one, because this distance that you're learning is not actual distance that you would need to travel. This is way extra. You will not need that when you play. So the closer you are to the key, the better. But also if you do just this, if you really slide literally on the keys, it's also not very useful because it's practically impossible to really play like that all the time. So somewhere in between. So you're barely lifting and you're still traveling, try to travel the shortest distance possible without sliding on the keys, basically. So that would teach you the real distance between the keys. Of course, another variation of the same exercise can be when you do two hands together in any order. You can do either the same finger at the same time, that will give you different notes. For example, you have C, D, E in both hands and you start with finger 4, left hand starts on C, right hand starts on E, and you go towards each other. 4, 3, 2. Now you can go closer, now from D. Now like this. And so on. You can do 5 fingers. You can do another variant where you have the same note at the same time, but a different finger, like this. So your both hands play C at the same time, but with a different finger, because that's how our fingers are. If you connect them like this, they will always be opposite, except the 3 will be together. So it'll be like this. And so on. Okay. And last thing I'm going to say about the first exercise is that when you do this kind of thing, when you do one finger at a time, you can also combine that with memorizing the names of the notes if you don't know them yet. For example, you play only all the C's. You start with the very lowest, and it doesn't matter if your right hand is uncomfortable, just slightly tilt your body, and then your arm extends here. So only the C. C, 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 C. I know it's a little silly, but you know what? You get used to it quicker. Then only the, let's say, only the F. Left hand can go. You can play where the right hand goes C, left hand goes B, or something like that. I don't know, like this. It's a little tougher. I don't know. Whatever your imagination tells you, you can modify this exercise how it suits you best. This next exercise has to do with another important feature of piano playing as opposed to some other instruments, is coordination. We are, as pianists, get used to having equality between hands. However, you can argue that most of the time in simple music, right hand has the melody, something that is melodious so you can sing it. So like this, and left hand will have something that accompanies it, so it's a little bit different function, right? So something like that, right? So quite different. But however, we train both of our hands to be equal in what they can do. And this is where coordination comes in. And they always have to play at the same time. It's very rare where your one hand is resting for a long time and the other hand plays. So you need to get used to coordinating both of your hands. One good exercise for this is very simple, is hold versus move. And for hold, I suggest the simple fifth, interval of a fifth, where you span from 5 to 1, 5 keys apart, C to G, for example, like this. And you play it at the same time. While your right hand plays, again, you can play whatever you choose. I just choose the same simple 5-note pattern as I did before, with the same keys from C to G. Left hand will hold the fifth, right hand will move 5 notes. Ready? Down. Now you can change this pattern to go to a different key. Or you can change this pattern in the frequency of left hand attack. For example, left hand can play every 2 notes. Then you switch your hands. You can do it the opposite now. Left hand will move, right hand will stay. So. And so on. You can change the interval on the right hand or left hand, whatever. You can play a third instead. If you're playing a third, I would recommend skip a note, skip a finger, so it's either 1 and 3, 2 and 4, or 3 and 5, whatever is more comfortable. So for example, again, the other hand pattern can also be 3 notes. You can do the same finger. piano, this is your time, your music, you can do whatever you like. But the goal here is that one is playing continuously note after note, and the other hand has to hold and attack at different times. So where there are times where one is holding, the other one is playing. So that element of raising one hand while the other stays is an important element of coordination that you need to get used to as a piano player. You can also do that with chords. A chord is very simply 3-note unit that is usually skip, skip, skip. So in C chord, C major chord would be a triad, for example. Chords can have more than 3 notes, but at least 3. So let's say this is a triad or a chord, you can do that. And you can even do the same pattern in the other hand. You can skip. Instead of playing one note after the other, you can skip. Well, let's switch the hands. So I'm going to play these 3 notes in the left hand, C, E, G, as a chord. And the right hand will arpeggiate those notes, meaning one after the other. You can move it. It's a little bit more advanced than the previous, but if you're willing to try it, give it a try. It makes it more interesting and you advance quicker. The last exercise is also about coordination, and it has to do with different articulation. Articulation is how we attack the key and how we connect this key or the sound, the note, to the next. The one I mentioned earlier was legato, where you connect between the notes smoothly, right? That's legato, like this, simply 2 notes, that's legato. And the other one, very simple one that usually we start with, is non-legato. Non-legato is simply not legato, is Italian term. You simply have to remove your hand and then attack the next note. And notice I do release. So the idea is you lift your wrist slightly, release, and go down again. Relax. Don't forget to relax. I do have a video about how relaxation is important when you play. So this is what you do. Up, down, and up, relax. Give weight, down, up, relax. Right? And then this will be combined with the left hand, in this case playing legato. That's tricky. So now let's try that. So left hand will play the same pattern, except legato, meaning connected. And you can start very, very slowly, even with one note, just simply one note stays. Okay, you have to say right hand will have to remove and left hand stays. Ready? Now left hand moves smoothly, right hand goes down, right hand releases. So that moment where one stays and the other one has to go is important. It takes time getting used to it. For some of you it might be very easy, for some of you it might be very difficult. It doesn't matter. We all have different practice, different abilities, different experience, so it doesn't matter if it's hard or easy, you can all get it. So anyway, let's try the other way around. So the same thing. Now right hand plays legato, left hand non-legato. Right? I'm exaggerating how far I'm going. How far up. You don't have to go that far up. Actually, in fact, it's better again if you don't do exaggerated all the way here. However, if you don't remove completely from the key, if you just stay on it like this, that's not as efficient because you want to really show, you want your hand, your arm, or wrist in this case, to really indicate release. And how can you best indicate release? You can actually lift your wrist slightly. And you do leave the key for a moment. Not too far, but also don't stay on it. You can, but I just don't recommend it. Here we go. Just really feel, this is down, this is going up. Up. And again, you can move that here. You can simplify it to 3-note exercise or to arpeggiating a chord. I know I just showed you only the white keys, but feel free to do the same thing with the black keys. It doesn't matter which keys you play. However, for this exercise, it doesn't matter if you play this. If you play this is the same. But for the first exercise, the reason I didn't include the black keys is simply because the distances are best learned with the white keys, because the distances between the black keys is not consistent. See, if you only do the black keys here, for example, there's a big gap. So you need to remember that. We'll incorporate that later on. But for now, better to focus on the white keys. And let me briefly say why I find these exercises to be so extremely important. Is because it enables you to not be fixated on your hands when you start playing with notes. When you have music in front of you, you are going to panic thinking, oh, I have to look here, but how do I know where my notes are? You don't have to look at your hands will memorize physically the distances between the keys so you can actually manipulate it without looking. This is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to leave me a comment or question below, I will do my best to get to you as fast as I can. I do read them all, and I apologize if I don't respond immediately. It takes a little bit longer sometimes, but I will try to improve in that regard. And you can meet me in the next video. I hope I can do something rather short and quick in a week or so. And if you would like to suggest a topic, feel free, but right now I might not be able to accommodate too many requests because I'm trying to choose something that can be done quickly without too much preparation and without too much cuts and inserting like scores and everything, because it takes a lot of time for me. And thank you so much for watching again, and stay tuned for more videos. Bye.